So look, as we mentioned, Congresswoman Grijalva's first act after being sworn in yesterday was to sign the bipartisan petition to release the so-called Epstein files. Members on both sides want these files released, and with her signature, that petition can now move forward in the House. Democrats cheered her on, and two Epstein survivors were actually in the chamber to witness the signing that they had been waiting for. Under House rules, Speaker Mike Johnson must now take mandatory action on the measure. He said yesterday, a vote on the Epstein bill entitled the Epstein Files Transparency Act will be brought to the floor next week. While it now looks like it will pass the House, it faces an uphill battle in the Senate. On social media yesterday, President Trump called out Republicans backing the bill, saying any lawmaker on the right supporting it was, quote, very bad or stupid, and stressed there should be no deflection to Epstein. Congressman Thomas Massey of Kentucky, the House Republican leading the charge on the bill, said he has spoken to colleagues about the vote.
I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it, and I think that could snowball. To be, the deal for Republicans on this vote is that Trump will protect you if you vote the wrong way. In other words, if you vote to cover up for pedophiles, you've got cover in a Republican primary. But I would remind my colleagues that this vote is going to be on your record for longer than Trump is going to be president. And what are you going to do in 2028 and 2030 when you're in a debate, either with a Republican or a Democrat, and they say, how can we trust you? You covered up for a pedophile back in 2025.
But I don't think it even is 2028. I think the conflict within the MAGA base is right now. Let's bring around MSNBC national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman, also MSNBC senior reporter, legal reporter and former litigator Lisa Rubin, also with his former state attorney for Palm Beach County, where most of this happened, Dave Ehrenberg. John Heilman, I want to start with you. You know, if it were only so easy for a Republican congressman or congresswoman or senator, as it has been since Donald Trump became president in 2017, it's been very simple. Don't make the president mad. Keep the MAGA base with you. Win primaries. It's not, I actually think that Congressman Massey may have been getting a bit of his analysis wrong, because it's not worrying about what your political world looks like in 2028 when Donald Trump's gone. It's what it looks like now, because the MAGA base they want these Epstein files released. So it's when you have the FBI director and the attorney general lobbying a congresswoman from Colorado, saying, get off the petition, and they do the same to Nancy Mace, and both of those members say no. You know right there that there is a deep divide in the MAGA base, and actually voting to cover this up, voting to keep what they consider and what they've considered for a decade, this conspiracy under wraps, actually ends up hurting you more with your Republican base, right?
Well, yes, Joe, and I would say it's actually a hit in no matter which direction you look at this, right? You've got the problem, which is with the Republican base, if you're worried about getting primaried. On the other side, you've got a general electorate where the polling is overwhelmingly in favor of releasing the Epstein files. You were talking before about good gets better and bad gets worse, right? Right. And how things build on each other. If you think about what the message of the off-year elections were, they've scared Republicans, rightly so, everywhere about the way that things are going for them, about all those counties that are shifting into the blue, about the overwhelming kind of up and down, coast to coast Democratic repudiation of Republicans in those off-year elections. Now, think about the United States Senate, where if the House does pass this vote, to force the release of the Epstein files, it moves to the Senate, where I believe that the filibuster won't be in play. It'll be a straight up down majority vote. You got 13 sitting Republican senators running for re-election in 2026. We could go through the list of those people. How many of those people want to take a vote against not just the Republican base, but also about 3/4 of the general electorate that wants to see the Epstein files released? Puts them in an incredibly difficult position. I don't think people are saying it's going to be an uphill fight in the Senate. I'm not sure that's right. You need 4 Republican senators to get this through the Senate. Are there 4 of the 13 sitting Republican senators who are up for re-election who are not going to get on the side of this issue where 75% of the American public is and where the MAGA base increasingly is also? I don't really see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the MAGA base has been there. Like, MAGA base has been pushing this for a decade. The MAGA base has been saying that the powers that be, is like the deep state, has been protecting rich, powerful men who are pedophiles and release the documents. That's all we've heard. Remember, Pam Bondi called the right-wing influencers over and gave them notebooks with very little inside of them, binders with very little inside of them. So it is a central issue for them. But you bring up a great point. We're all focused on the House because that's where I'm a member of the House. If they're conspiracy theorists, chances are good they swirl around in the backbenches of the House. But you bring up a great point. You've got senators that are going to be running, Republican senators that are going to be running. And I've seen it firsthand. The things that you think should break through to the American people don't break through. During Bill Clinton's term, there were a lot of things that I thought should break through that didn't break through. And then it was a personal situation, let's just say, that broke through. And I was thinking, wait, okay, they're going to impeach him for this, but they were okay with, like, missile cells to China that, like, everybody at the DOD said he should never do. But you never know what's going to break through. This is one of those things that break through. And so if you're a Republican senator and you're sitting fairly comfortably, maybe you think you're going to win easily, or by 3 or 4 or 5 points. You just saw what happened last week. The massive wave elections coast to coast. You saw what happened in even Bucks County, the swingiest swing county in America, practically. You'd have to be pretty stupid to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be on the side of covering up the Epstein files. I think you're right. I think as this gets through the House and goes to the Senate, there are going to be a lot of Republican senators who said no to Donald Trump on the filibuster that are probably going to say no to him on covering up the Epstein files.
So
yeah,
listen,
I mean, Joe, the filibuster thing was very much on my mind. You know, the Republican Senate, which has almost never bucked Trump on anything, in the wake of the election results, on the off-year election results, that Tuesday, November 4th, immediately thereafter we saw, and it hasn't gotten enough attention, we saw Republican senators suddenly find their backbone on the question of the filibuster. If Republican senators told Trump to pound sand in the wake of the off-year elections on the filibuster, are they really just going to cave into Trump on an issue like this, which, as you say, is cutting through? Most Americans still don't really understand the filibuster. I'm not sure I understand the filibuster, but everybody understands this Jeffrey Epstein story. And you are going to see the survivors out in force again. They are going to be saying, are you really, Senator Susan Collins, are you really going to vote against the wishes of the Jeffrey Epstein survivors who want to see these files come out? They're going to make that case if they have any political savvy, and they have shown that they do. They're going to make that case to every swing sitting Republican senator who's in any way vulnerable. And I think it's going to be a very hard vote to resist for someone like, say, Susan Collins. I don't see it. I can't imagine Susan Collins is going to side with Donald Trump and against the Epstein survivors. Doesn't make any sense to me. And I think there are at least 4 of them who are going to be like that.
This is what the base wanted. This was about 2 systems of justice. This is about young girls being victimized. Who's going to vote against trying to get justice in this case of Jeffrey Epstein? That's the question.
Nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
So, denials.
Essentially, these fresh Epstein emails that were leaked yesterday seem to be more about what Trump knew rather than anything he actually did. I've got the two key quotes here. Epstein writes, of course he, Trump, knew about the girls. He means the girls trafficked for sex. And he also says that Trump, quote, spent hours with one victim at Epstein's house, and we can only speculate what he was doing during those hours. But layer by layer, we seem to be getting closer to the truth, don't we?
Well, look, I think that with Donald Trump, people have thrown absolutely everything at him. So even though I'm sure he knew a lot about what was going on, I'm sure that, I don't know whether he's guilty of any crimes or anything like that, but it seems to me that he's completely immune from any of the criticism because so much has been thrown at him and he's still there. Yeah. So I wonder how politically significant these new so-called revelations will be. I mean, there's a lot already baked in about Trump. We know that he was very good friends with Epstein. He sent purportedly him messages on his birthday, on his 50th birthday, although Trump denies this. Yeah. But I don't see how...
Not just denies it, but is suing.
He's suing. Well, he always sues everything. So, but I think it's very unlikely, actually, that the new revelations, as far as I'm concerned, will do much damage.
Teflon Trump.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and also there's no smoking gun yet. I mean, one of the first exchanges of emails between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell released, dated back in 2011, Epstein wrote, I want you to realise that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. And then the redacted name of a victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. Maxwell responds, I have been thinking about that. But then the White House unredacted the name, said it was Virginia Giuffre, and said she never made any complaint about him. In fact, she was always positive about him.
So I think I'd probably take a step back from this and I'd probably move it from, you know, what's the game about sort of Trump here and who's using this to weaponize this against Trump. I think everything should be released. And I think anybody who had any association with Jeffrey Epstein has to come forward and tell people what they knew, because we are talking about kind of a sort of an industrial scale level of sex grooming and sex abuse. And this, I don't believe it was just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. There were powerful men at the top of every major discipline, politics, business, you know, whatever, involved in all of this. And also the toll that this abuse takes on women. You know, I interviewed and did some work with some of the survivors of the, you know, the Asian grooming gang scandal. Similarly, these, you know, women who were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. It casts a long tail on these women's lives. Virginia Giuffre, you know, took her life in the end. I just think release these, because these are some emails, release everything.
So look, I think that Aisha's right in that people should come forward, but I don't think they will. I mean, look what happened to Andrew. He did exactly what you suggested. He tried to come forward and clear the air.
No, but he didn't cooperate. He didn't cooperate
with the FBI.
He didn't cooperate.
No, but the interview
he came forward with a bunch of lies.
Yeah, he said he didn't swear.
He came forward with dishonesty.
No, but it was a disaster. And I think people looking at that, the powerful people that you're talking about,
go and talk to the authorities.
Will look at that and say, why on earth would I volunteer myself to go forward and talk about that?
Aisha, you're talking about the right thing, but it's not a likely thing.
No,
but until the authorities actually come for these individuals.
That is why they should release all the information. And now that this, let's hope this shutdown has stopped in America, hopefully, you know, their parliament will resume. This new woman, this new Democrat will take her place, and there could be a vote on this, and she could have an important vote, so the files could be released.
Some of the other emails that were released yesterday show a conversation between Epstein and his sort of media advisor, a journalist, Wolf he's called. And he was advising Trump. Basically, he was saying, you've got the goods. Sorry, he was advising Epstein. You've kind of got the goods on Trump. and it's up to you what you do with it. You can either go public with it and destroy him, or you can kind of cover for him, and then he'll be, as the next president, he'll be in your debt.
Yeah.
Your call. Now, that implies that there are emails to come out which are dynamite. If they are that powerful that they could destroy Trump's reputation, and that's difficult to do. As you said, he's Teflon coated.
I mean, look, he started running for president in 2015. That's 10 years in which people have thrown everything at him. I'm not condoning him. I'm not saying he's a good guy.
No,
I'm saying that he's had everything thrown at him, and he's still there. And I wonder whether this new information will do him any damage. And also, the way it is that it's so polarized that the more he's attacked, the more his base seem to like him.
Should we have a listen to what Caroline Levitt said at the White House?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
So, denials.
Absolute denials. But look, you know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let's see all these files. And by the way, I'm just, you know, I think Donald Trump is a slight red herring.
Sure.
There are lots of other names.
That's right.
And I think that is the thing that will be incredibly interesting. I do not buy that there were just two people involved in this.
No. Let's talk about Andrew then. He's mentioned in the emails released yesterday. Now, we know from the interview on Newsnight that Andrew lied through his teeth, basically. Sure. He said that he'd cut off all contact with Epstein in 2010, and in fact, he carried on emailing him and contacted him in detail. He entered into a conspiracy after he said that he'd broken off with Epstein to smear Virginia Giuffre's name, swapping all kinds of personal information about her. And yet in the interview, he denied having any knowledge of her. And he also tried to imply that the photograph, which I think we can probably see now, of his arm around Giuffre's waist, could have been fraudulent, could have been a forgery. The Daily Mail, which first published that photograph, have come up with conclusive scientific evidence to show that it's not a fake, it's the real thing. And if that needed endorsing, it comes through the email yesterday, when Epstein says, yes, she, meaning Giuffre, had her picture taken with Andrew, as did many of my employees. So he is saying that the picture's genuine. That leaves Andrew in an even worse position if it was possible.
Look, I think Andrew, exactly. I mean, if that were possible, I think Andrew is being completely discredited. And it was the lying, actually, that did him the most damage.
That's what got him basically ejected from the royal family.
That's right. So I think he's kind of at a rock bottom. And again, I don't see any more information making his position worse, because he's in the worst position he could
he's
be.
not going to come forward, is he? Because he would be at risk of prejudicing his position.
That's right. And also, he did before. I mean, you're making a distinction between the legal process and him doing an interview. But it's the same sort of thing. I mean, they're implicating, you know, they're implying themselves. They're essentially admitting wrongdoing, people might think. So why would they do that?
In the emails released, he has emailed Ghislaine Maxwell, hey there, what's all this? I don't know anything about this. You must say so, please. This has nothing to do with me. I can't take any more of this. I mean, clearly knew he was under pressure.
Absolutely, and rightly so. I mean, look, I mean, he denies all the allegations, but why was that money paid to Virginia Giuffre? Why will he not speak to anybody? I mean, that's not, as Richard said, why did he go and lie on national television about all of this? But I think when you kind of take a step back and you look at this story in the round, this is not just a story about, you know, Prince Andrew or, you know, Jeffrey Epstein. This is a story about how these incredibly rich, powerful men thought they could just act with impunity, these kind of masters of the universe. I mean, we're talking, I think when the full names, if they ever come out, I think we will be so shocked at some of the names who are involved in this.
But that goes to the part of what you just said about powerful people. I mean, that's the problem that Andrew had, was that he was, not through any skill of his own, I mean, he had inherited a position, and it looked as if he was abusing that position and the friendship he had. And clearly Epstein was trying to use this stuff against these people. I mean, you made the point about the Trump. I mean, he was trying to hold power over them.
Aisha makes a really good point. I mean, we don't know exactly how many victims there were. It could be hundreds, could be up to 1,000, as some speculate. It must be exhausting, emotionally exhausting, if you're one of those women. Because, of course, the release of these emails means that perhaps you might, information about your own life and experience might come out. You might not want that to come out.
Absolutely. And I interviewed the brother of Virginia Giuffre, and I was so moved about, obviously, the huge toll it had taken on her life. And I think when women have been abused as girls, it can affect them in terms of the rest of their lives, the choices they make, and they're not in control of this release of this information. These are, I think, the bravery of these women. Take someone like Virginia Giuffre. She's just an ordinary girl. She's in this horrendous situation. She takes on not only a really rich, powerful man like Jeffrey Epstein, she takes on, like, the royal family. She is taking on some of the most powerful men and institutions and families and elites on the planet. The toll of that is huge.
Meanwhile, the clock continues to tick for the BBC. By my reckoning, they've got about 39 and a quarter hours to respond to Trump's lawyer's deadline of 10 o'clock tomorrow night. We read in the Telegraph and other papers this morning, but as usual, the Telegraph's leading on this story, or leading the story, that the BBC are going to make a direct apology to Trump. They're going to contact him directly and say, sorry, we screwed up.
I think they have to do that because he says he's going to sue them. He will sue them. I mean, he does that all the time. That's what he does almost for a living. And then the whole story will drag on and on and on and on. And it'll be a soap opera, which they won't be able to...
Do you think an apology will be enough, or do you think they have to throw a bit of money at it as well?
No, I think an apology... Because he said, if you don't apologise, I will sue you.
Right. Yeah, but he also wanted compensation as part of the deal.
Yeah, so I don't know. I suspect he will just take the apology and then he'll wave that around and say, hey, look, they apologised.
I think he'll also want some kind of broadcast, maybe at the head of the 6 o'clock news or at the head of the Telegraph.
Yeah, it'll be some...
A 15, 20 second
he loves...
statement.
What he loves is humiliating his enemies, essentially.
Grinding
so he'll want them to... he'll want to sort of screw their faces in the dust. But we'll just have to wait and see.
It's interesting, Aisha, because we understood that earlier this week that the legal advice was it's okay. You could fight this. The BBC could sort of stick it out. But the trouble is, Kwasi's point is, Trump doesn't like losing, so it probably could have made it worse if they'd done that and gone into battle.
I think there's definitely...
What would you have advised them?
I think there's definitely an argument that, it would be hard for him to sort of actually get across the line on a defamation case. But you could only fight that if you were really coming from a position of strength, and the BBC is not in a position of strength right now. And I do totally agree with Kwasi in the sense that I think what Trump will want is for him to be able to pop up at the beginning of the BBC for like 10 minutes and do a kind of monologue to the British public about how terrible this organisation is and how great he is. Look, I think I'm a big defender of the BBC. I think the BBC is so part of our DNA as a country, but I think the BBC really, really messed up on this and some other things. As a basic journalist, you know that's something that you shouldn't do. But it also doesn't sit well with me that a lot of people who are against the BBC are kind of wanting to sort of use this to tear down the BBC. But the BBC messed up and has got to do better.
And also the BBC, in terms of the court case, who's going to pay for that? That's going to be public money.
Oh, it's us.
And then that's going to be a huge... They want to shut this down as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something which is really always gets our viewers going, gets the public going generally, is the question of what to do with Shamima Begum, who we interviewed on this programme a few years ago at her camp in Syria. It's been recommended by an independent commission in looking into terrorism and counter-terrorism that she should come home.
Sure.
That we should bring her home, maybe put her on trial, maybe send her to jail, but we need to get her out of the camp. She was only a 15-year-old schoolgirl when she went there, and it's time to bring her back. I can't see a single message on this from people watching agreeing with that. They hate.
Oh no, I can.
Oh, can you?
Oh yeah, we've got a number of comments saying that she should be allowed.
Yeah, but it'll be 9 to 1. 9 to 1 again.
Well, I'm not sure you're right, but anyway, Mick says she's British. The age at which she was radicalised and left the country is not enough.
Straight Shooter with Stephen A.
We know what's going on.
You've called on Senate.
That they should have kept the pressure on. By not doing so, it gave the pressure and undermined the narrative that this was a Trump shutdown. And I'm not even saying it's a faulty strategy. Paid attention to Harris for more years. Now you're paying attention to what the hell is going on. You didn't focus on that before. This is what I'm talking about. I know the GOP's hands ain't clean in all of this. Mike Johnson delaying the process. Trump doing everything he can to create headlines everywhere else because he doesn't want us focusing on the Epstein files. We were born that night, not last night. You know what the hell is going on. But the Dems ain't innocent in all of this. Not by a damn sight. Speaking of the Epstein files, Representative Adelita Grijalva, she was a guest on this show. She was sworn in this afternoon. And she spoke about the Epstein files because ABC News came out with a story today linking Trump to the Epstein files because Jeffrey Epstein, seen during emails or via emails, essentially alluded to the fact that Trump knew about the girls, whatever that means, without specificity. Adelita Grijalva spoke about that because obviously once she's sworn in, she's the final deciding vote for the Epstein files to be opened and essentially given to the public, supposedly. And here she is today on the House floor, speaking about it. Griff, play cut 5.
Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ plus rights because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files.
Y'all cool with that? I have no problem with the Epstein files being exposed. I think anybody who's done what Jeffrey Epstein did should be thrown under the damn jail. They should spend the rest of their natural born life in prison if he was alive to do it. Young girls being sexually molested is as disgusting as it gets. It is as vile as it gets. We ain't making any excuses for anybody like that. What a despicable, despicable human being. There's a special place in hell for people like that. But that's not what anybody can definitively associate the president with. He knew Epstein, so did Bill Clinton. So did a plethora of other famous people inside and outside the world of politics. Incriminating emails, well, what specifically and how significant was it? And when we sit up there as Democrats and we're applauding on the House floor, now that Adelita Grijalva was there talking about she'll be the final vote to sit up there and open the Epstein files, and everybody's applauding for the Democratic Party. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that the Epstein files were in existence and free to have been opened during the Biden administration. You were there for 4 years. How come you didn't open it as a Democratic Party then? What am I missing? I'm not saying I know. It's a legitimate question. Maybe I don't remember the answer. Maybe my extraordinary producers should be able to help me during the commercial break. But from my understanding, the same files that were open or being open now with the 220 pages of documents or whatever it is, with various emails, that could have been done when Biden was in office. Well, why didn't you do it? If it's so important now. What were the Democrats doing at that particular moment in time? See, this is the kind of stuff that smells. Because my attitude is just deducing how much they despise Trump is if there was some real bona fide dirt on him, since you went after him with the 34 felony convictions, which essentially was deduced to him paying hush money to Stormy Daniels, a porn star, just so she wouldn't reveal their happenings with one another leading up to the election in 2016, okay? If you had something like that you were willing to parade him through the streets with, of course, if you had something on him about Epstein, you'd have let it go earlier to make sure he didn't become the 47th president. That's just my thinking from a logical perspective. But what do I know? Either way you slice it, when that kind of stuff is going on, all it does is foster the continual divide that is inevitably going to exist. One side hates each other so much that neither side is willing to negotiate and work with one another until desperate times means desperate measures. And the American people are the ones that suffer first, and they're the ones that suffer the most before the residual collateral impact is truly, truly felt. That's the damn problem. And even with the end of this shutdown taking place, I still find myself thinking, more the same, ain't nothing new. A continual resolution likely be reached, be signed, shutdown will probably end, it's gonna end today. And as a result, okay, the government will be financed through the end of January. Let's get through the holidays. At least this ain't going on during Thanksgiving. At least this ain't going on through Christmas. At least this ain't going on through New Year's Eve. And we'll go into the New Year's, and then we can be the same old sorry asses we've been. At the expense of the American people. 866-967-6887. That's 866-96-POTUS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the distinguished gentlelady, the top Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, for yielding and for her steadfast leadership on behalf of working families, hard-working American taxpayers in the great state of Connecticut and all across America. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this woefully inadequate spending bill that fails to decisively address the Republican health care crisis and fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. Mr. Speaker, before I say anything further, let me say to our men and women in uniform, to our active duty troops, to our hardworking federal employees, to our civil servants, to our TSA agents, to our Capitol Police, to our staff here in the House of Representatives, to our air traffic controllers, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the American people each and every day. And it's our promise to all of you that we will continue to work hard to make sure that you are treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve. In a year in which the Trump administration has gone after hardworking federal employees relentlessly, including firing more than 200,000 federal employees prior to the start of the Trump Republican shutdown. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Donald Trump and Republicans made the decision to shut the government down, the longest shutdown in American history. Would rather do that than provide health care that's affordable to working class Americans, middle class Americans, and hardworking American taxpayers. All across the country, I'm certain that there are people in America asking the question, where do we go from here? House Democrats have a simple answer. We will continue to fight to lower the high cost of living. House Democrats will continue to fight to address the health care crisis that Republicans have created. And House Democrats will continue to fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We'll fight today. We'll fight tomorrow. We'll fight this week. We'll fight next week. We'll fight this month. We'll fight next month. We'll fight until we win this battle for the American people. That's our commitment as House Democrats. And there's only two ways that this fight will end. Only two ways, Mr. Speaker, that this fight will end. Either Republicans finally decide to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits this year, or the American people will throw Republicans out of their jobs next year and end the speakership of Donald J. Trump once and for all. That's how this fight ends. Mr. Speaker, during this painful Trump Republican shutdown, what we've seen is two different philosophies in terms of how to govern for the American people. The Democratic Party philosophy is clear. We are ready, willing, and able to find bipartisan common ground anytime, any place, to enact spending agreements that actually make life better for the American people. But in order to do that, we need to have partners on the other side of the aisle who are actually willing to find a bipartisan path forward. But what we've seen from Republicans from the very beginning of this presidency is a my way or the highway approach. That's been the Republican philosophy. Jam your extremism down the throats of the American people. That's what we've seen from day one of this presidency. That's the reason why the government has been shut down by Republicans and Donald Trump for the longest period of time in American history. What have we seen from Donald Trump and Republicans during this shutdown? A consistent unwillingness to actually find common ground in order to make life better for the American people. Donald Trump, during this shutdown, found the time to play golf week after week after week. Donald Trump found the time to pardon serial fraudsters like George Santos and Rudolph Giuliani. Donald Trump found the time to meet with the Chinese Communist Party. Donald Trump found the time to destroy the East Wing of the White House. Donald Trump found the time to extort $230 million from the Department of Justice so he could line his pockets. Donald Trump found the time to bail out Argentina with $40 billion. Donald Trump found the time to rip away SNAP benefits from 42 million Americans. Mr. Speaker, these extremists are not like us. They're not like us. They have zero interest in fighting hard to make life better for the American people. Their philosophy, my way or the highway, our response, get lost. We're going to continue to fight hard on behalf of the American people. In the midst of a healthcare crisis and a cost of living crisis that is very real, despite what Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, has to say, he claims there is no affordability crisis in the United States of America. But why would anyone believe anything that Donald Trump or Republicans have to say on this issue? Because throughout 2024, before the election, Republicans in the House and in the Senate and Donald Trump on the campaign trail spent all of their time saying that costs were going to go down on day one. But costs haven't gone down. Republicans haven't done a damn thing to lower the high cost of living. Costs haven't gone down in this country. Costs have gone up. Inflation is on the way up. Housing costs out of control. Grocery costs out of control. Electricity bills out of control. Healthcare costs skyrocketing out of control. And in the midst of this affordability crisis, seeing this, Democrats said, we've got to fight to make sure that we extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that tens of millions of people working class folks, middle class folks, people in rural America, working class America, small town America, the heartland of America, black and brown communities all throughout America don't experience premium increases that in some cases will go up by $1,000 or $2,000 per year. In many cases, month after month after month, $1,000 or $2,000 per month, tens of thousands of dollars per year. Unacceptable in this country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And this is in the midst of a Republican healthcare crisis. Republicans enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripped health insurance away from 14 million Americans. As a result of Republican policies, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across America, including in rural parts of this great country of ours. And now, because of Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are at risk of being unable to afford to go see a doctor when they need one. In this country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, it can't be the case that health care is simply a privilege for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Mr. Speaker, that's the Republican perspective. We believe as Democrats that health care has to be a right, and a right that's affordable and available to every single American in the United States. That's what this fight is all about. And that's what the fight will continue to be about as we move forward. Many of my Republican colleagues have suggested that they want to deal with the health care affordability issue, that they want to address the Republican health care crisis that's devastating people all across this country. Well, we have an opportunity for you to do so. There's a discharge petition connected to legislation that House Democrats have introduced to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years, because we believe that working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans deserve the same level of certainty that Republicans always provide to the wealthy, the well-off, and their well-connected donors. Working class Americans deserve that level of certainty. So join us in extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. It's not too late. We're in the midst of open enrollment, but the tax credits expire on December 31st. And we will stay on this issue until we get this issue resolved for everyday Americans. Mr. Speaker, as I close, I've had the opportunity, as many of us do, to serve in the United States Congress with legendary figures, too numerous to mention. Legendary members, of course, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, the great Jim Clyburn, Maxine Waters, Elijah Cummings, Charlie Rangel, our own Marcy Kaptur, the longest serving woman in the history of the United States House of Representatives. We've all had the opportunity to serve with legendary members, John Dingell, too numerous to mention. But one can't call that role without calling the name of the great John Lewis. I had the distinct honor of serving with John Lewis for several terms. Many of us here in the House of Representatives did. I'll never forget, on my first day in the Congress, I had the opportunity to meet John Lewis for the first time in person. And he called me over to see him on the House floor, and he just asked me a simple question. He said, "Are you the new guy?" And I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis, I am." And he said, "Well, we're colleagues now. You don't have to call me Mr. Lewis, you can call me John." I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis, I understand." And then he said to me, "You're from Brooklyn, right?" Now, Mr. Speaker, I got to be honest, I was tempted to say, Brooklyn is always in the house. But instead, since my mother raised me with some sense, Lenita Jeffries, I said, yes, sir, I'm from Brooklyn. And then he said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, well, I hear some positive things about you from your predecessor, but Washington, D.C., young man, can be a rough place. So I don't want you to get into any trouble unless it's good trouble. And I just wanted to stop by on the House floor to make sure it was clear to the American people that the spirit of John Lewis lives amongst House Democrats, and we will continue to get into good trouble to make their life better. That's our commitment to every single American all across this country, from this day and for every day moving forward. And it was John Lewis who said to us that ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, and maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. Mr. Lewis, we love you. We were blessed by our opportunity to serve with you, and House Democrats are here to do our part. We're in this fight until we win this fight for the American people. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. The gentlewoman from Connecticut has 30 seconds remaining and is recognized.
I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Connecticut yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my distinct pleasure to yield the balance of our time to the distinguished Speaker of the House, my very good friend and a person I admire greatly.
1 minute. 1 minute.
I'm actually just going to hold you to 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. My good friend, the gentleman from Louisiana, Speaker Mike Johnson.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
I want to thank my friend Chairman Cole's done an extraordinary job in this process. And Mr. Speaker, we all know why we're here. House Democrats voted to shut the government down. It was 54 days ago when we had that vote, September 19th. And since that time, Senate Democrats have voted 14 times to close the government. Republicans voted a collective 15 times to open the government for the people, and the Democrats voted that many times to close it. And then they admitted, many of them, and we could name them here, but I'm not going to take the time, they admitted that they were using the American people as leverage in this political game. They knew that it would cause pain, and they did it anyway. The whole exercise was pointless. It was wrong, and it was cruel. In mere moments, I want you to watch the board. They're going to do it again. I'm going to guess for you that most of our Democrat colleagues are going to vote again to close the government, again to take food out of the mouths of families that need it, again to deny pay to federal employees, again to stall flights and cancel airlines and do all the rest that they've done. But we are not going to let them succeed in that gambit, and that's right. While the Democrats keep voting to shut the government down, Republicans are going to vote to open it back up. And with that, we're going to get the American government running again and working for the people as they deserve. I'm going to close with this. You know, as Speaker, you have the ability to talk as long as you want, but I'm not going to do that tonight. We're not going to waste any more time of the people. I'm just going to say this. I think that everybody needs to remember this one simple thing. From the very beginning of this whole ordeal, on the Republican side, we operated in good faith. We offered a clean, nonpartisan CR. We were honest and transparent with the American people from the very beginning, and every single day of the shutdown, we went out and looked right into the camera with a press conference and told the American people the simple truth. We have done for the people what has been right and just and truthful. And in the end, that is what God honors always. Don't forget it. We need to get this government open as soon as possible, and I'm going to yield back the remainder of my time so we can do that. The American people demand it and deserve it. My friends, let's get this done. Thank you. I yield back.
Proud of you. The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma has 3 minutes remaining and is.
And we're going to turn and listen in to the business on the floor and the swearing in of the latest member of Congress.
Overdue justice and accountability for hundreds of victims abused by rich and powerful men. She is a smart, principled fighter through and through, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor to welcome and introduce to this chamber Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva.
Muchas gracias. Good job. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleague and friend, Congressman Stanton, for that kind introduction, and to the entire Democratic delegation from Arizona and the delegation that stood here with me that has supported me throughout this process. I rise today the proud granddaughter of a bracero, a hardworking Mexican immigrant who came to this country for a better life. And I stand as the proud daughter of a U.S. congressman, a man who spent his entire life fighting for justice, equity, and dignity for the most vulnerable. Yeah. From working as a vaquero to serving in Congress in just a single generation, that is the promise of this country. That is the America I want to raise my 3 beautiful children in, Adelina, Raul, and Joaquin. Stand up, baby. Look at them. They, along with my amazing husband, Sol, and my wonderful mama, Ramona, are here with me today. Muchas gracias por su apoyo y tu amor. And thank you to la gente of Southern Arizona for making history, electing me the first Latina, the first Chicana from Arizona to ever go to Congress. Este momento es histórico para nuestra comunidad. Es un honor ser la primera latina en representar a Arizona en el Congreso y les aseguro que aunque soy la primera, no será la última. And while we celebrate this moment today, our American promise is under serious threat. Basic freedoms are under attack. Healthcare premiums are skyrocketing. Babies are being ripped away from their parents by masked agents. We can and must do better. What is most concerning is not what this administration has done, but what the majority in this body has failed to do. Hold Trump accountable as a co-equal branch of government that we are. It has been 50 days since the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District elected me to represent them. 50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. This is an abuse of power. One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons.
democracy only works when everyone has a voice. This includes the millions of people across the country who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights, because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files. Justice cannot wait another day. Adelante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I yield back.
To turn it over to law enforcement. I'm 2 years in now, and no one's been arrested. So my heart and my pain is with the Epstein victims, and it's with every single man, woman, and child who's ever been abused and never gets justice. And if this can happen to me as a sitting member of Congress, it's happening all over the country to people everywhere. And I just want to give people hope that I see you. If you're a survivor, I see you. 2 years ago, I left my home, I left my car behind, I left my life savings with my abuser. I had nowhere to go. I lived in a one-bedroom garage apartment with 2 children 2 years ago, almost to the day. And I got through it. I found God's grace. And about a year ago, I was able to get a home for me and my children. But I moved 4 times. I've been through so much, and so my heart is with them tonight. My heart is with everybody across the country, every single person who's been abused.
Given your background, given the way that your heart is with these victims, when the White House approaches you and makes clear the fact that they don't like the discharge petition that is moving through, that has the votes, what do you say to them about the fact that they could help these victims get the kind of transparency that they are demanding?
Well, the president, he's been so good to people like me, to survivors like me, and I have supported him because he has protected women like me. I have told the White House that the Oversight Committee is going to be releasing more information in this discharge petition, I believe. And so, that's, I think, a relevant fact here and important. But for me, again, I'm never going to abandon victims. I'm never going to abandon survivors. And in fact, in the last 2 years, I've drafted over a dozen bills to protect women and children. And I think it's very important that, that we do what we need to do. And the president's been exonerated by the Epstein victims.
So
and
I
saw
that,
today,
why not just let the discharge petition happen?
We have to ask him that question. But like today, I agree with the president that there is legitimacy in his argument where he says this is a witch hunt. Look at today what the Democrats did today. We're reopening the government, and they just did a great disservice by focusing on Trump today. And I am deeply frustrated with the press. All this focus on Trump, who's been exonerated by the Epstein victims. And we're not focused on the Epstein victims or their stories. Why isn't a former prince behind bars? Why isn't the alleged magician behind bars? Why aren't the alleged billionaires and business people who were raping kids Why aren't they behind bars? And those are the stories I want to hear, that I want to see the press tell the stories of the Epstein victims, because I do believe this is a witch hunt with Trump. Look what they get Democrats today. They released, 2 or 3 emails? The Republicans released 20,000 emails because they just want to focus on one little thing. The Democrats redacted emails to try to spin the story in light of the press. Republicans, they released them all. They were unredacted. So this is a game that Democrats are playing. I think it's disingenuous to women, disingenuous to survivors, to everyone who has been through something like this. It is disingenuous. I don't like playing politics with rape. I don't like playing politics with child rape. I don't like playing politics with sex trafficking, but that's what Democrats are doing, and it's infuriating to me as someone who this is a very serious issue, and it's one of the reasons women don't come forward, kids don't come forward. We're not taken seriously. We are judged, we're shamed, we're attacked, we are smeared. I mean, my God, I was just sued the other day by a rapist, allegedly. A man that raped multiple women allegedly is now suing them. I mean, and women, like myself, I feel abandoned by the system. I think the system is completely broken, and I'm just going to keep fighting like hell for everybody out there. And I don't care, let the chips fall where they may, personally and professionally. I can only share my story and the story of other survivors because it just means so much. I want them to know, I want every Epstein victim to know, I want every survivor out there to know that I see you, I hear you, your pain is my pain, your fight is my fight, and I want to do whatever I can to get you justice.
Did the president or his staff pressure you?
See, again, you guys are just focusing on Trump.
He is the president.
You are focusing on Trump. I talked to the president last Friday, and he and I are playing phone tag over the last 24 hours. But this is my problem with you guys and the press and in the fake news. You're just honing in on Trump. Why aren't you talking about Prince Andrew? Why aren't you talking about former Prince Andrew? Why aren't you talking?
To take their names off the discharge page.
That's his prerogative, but I want you guys to tell these women's stories. Why is it so hard in the press for women to be taken seriously when they've been abused? I've seen what you guys have done to me. You guys have smeared me, defamed me, attacked me, spread a bed of lies, and the same thing happens to other women like the Epstein victims. No one wants to tell these stories. It's almost as if rape is a 4-letter word, and it shouldn't be, and if it makes you feel uncomfortable, good. But you guys are telling the wrong, you just want to say Trump for clickbait.
No,
and that's not what this is about.
There's a big vote that's happening in the House floor.
And we're voting to reopen the government, and all you guys are focused on today is
we've been covering the government shutdown nonstop for the last 43 days. The president, did he ask you to take your name off?
We've been playing, no, he has not. So we played phone tag the last 24 hours, and I talked to him last Friday. He helped me get brain surgery for a young woman in Virginia. I mean, he's a remarkable human being, and I wish you guys would treat him for the hero that he is. Thank you.
National Affairs correspondent Jeff Zeleny, he is at the White House for us. Jeff, good to see you. Sources telling CNN that top administration officials met today in the Situation Room about the House vote. What does that tell us? What are we learning?
Well, Casey, look, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that in the briefing today, confirming our CNN reporting that Lauren Boebert, of course, a single member of Congress, not a leadership member, not on any key committees, had that meeting in the Situation Room with the Attorney General of the United States, with the Deputy Attorney General, with the FBI Director. And of course, Lauren Boebert is one of the Republicans who has said she would cross over and sign that discharge petition, which would allow the House to go forward and vote on releasing the Department of Justice Epstein files. Lauren Boebert has just told our colleagues on Capitol Hill that she has no plans of changing her pledge to vote for that. But that extraordinary meeting here at the White House just underscores the stakes of all of this. The White House sought to explain the meeting in the Situation Room earlier today like this.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency?
So an extraordinary briefing by any measure. I cannot recall a time where effectively a rank-and-file member of Congress would have such a high-level briefing in the Situation Room of all things. But never mind that. President Trump also pushing back in a very significant way on Truth Social throughout the day about the release of the Epstein files. I'll read you just a flavor of some of what is on his mind, Casey. The president writes this: the Democrats, he says, are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country. However, when the new member from Arizona is sworn in, the discharge petition is scheduled to happen sometime after that, and then the shutdown vote happens later this evening. But the bottom line to all of this is the whole reason the House of Representatives has been away for nearly 2 months, it is to effectively try and end the whole Epstein conversation. Well, that is right back happening this afternoon in ways the White House could not have anticipated.
So look, as we mentioned, Congresswoman Grijalva's first act after being sworn in yesterday was to sign the bipartisan petition to release the so-called Epstein files. Members on both sides want these files released, and with her signature, that petition can now move forward in the House. Democrats cheered her on, and 2 Epstein survivors were actually in the chamber to witness the signing that they had been waiting for. Under House rules, Speaker Mike Johnson must now take mandatory action on the measure. He said yesterday, a vote on the Epstein bill entitled the Epstein Files Transparency Act will be brought to the floor next week. While it now looks like it will pass the House, it faces an uphill battle in the Senate. On social media yesterday, President Trump called out Republicans backing the bill, saying any lawmaker on the right supporting it was, quote, very bad or stupid, and stressed there should be no deflection to Epstein. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, the House Republican leading the charge on the bill, said he has spoken to colleagues about the vote.
I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it, and I think that could snowball. To be, the deal for Republicans on this vote is that Trump will protect you if you vote the wrong way. In other words, if you vote to cover up for pedophiles, you've got cover in a Republican primary. But I would remind my colleagues that this vote is going to be on your record for longer than Trump is going to be president. And what are you going to do in 2028 and 2030 when you're in a debate, either with a Republican or a Democrat, and they say, how can we trust you? You covered up for a pedophile back in 2025.
But I don't think it even is 2028. I think the conflict within the MAGA base is right now. Let's bring around MSNBC national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman, also MSNBC senior reporter, legal reporter and former litigator Lisa Rubin, also with his former state attorney for Palm Beach County, where most of this happened, Dave Ehrenberg. John Heilman, I want to start with you. You know, if it were only so easy for a Republican congressman or congresswoman or senator, as it has been since Donald Trump became president in 2017, it's been very simple. Don't make the president mad. Keep the MAGA base with you. Win primaries. It's not, I actually think that Congressman Massie may have been getting a bit of his analysis wrong, because it's not worrying about what your political world looks like in 2028 when Donald Trump's gone. It's what it looks like now, because the MAGA base they want these Epstein files released. So it's when you have the FBI director and the attorney general lobbying a congresswoman from Colorado, saying, get off the petition, and they do the same to Nancy Mace, and both of those members say no. You know right there that there is a deep divide in the MAGA base, and actually voting to cover this up, voting to keep what they consider and what they've considered for a decade, this conspiracy under wraps, actually ends up hurting you more with your Republican base, right?
Well, yes, Joe, and I would say it's actually a hit in no matter which direction you look at this, right? You've got the problem which is with the Republican base. If you're worried about getting primaried, on the other side, you've got a general electorate where the polling is overwhelmingly in favor of releasing the Epstein files. You were talking before about good gets better and bad gets worse, right? Right. And how things build on each other. If you think about what the message of the off-year elections were, they've scared Republicans, rightly so, everywhere about the way that things are going for them, about all those counties that are shifting into the blue, about the overwhelming kind of up and down, coast to coast Democratic repudiation of Republicans in those off-year elections. Now, think about the United States Senate, where if the House does pass this vote to force the release of the Epstein files, it moves to the Senate, where I believe that the filibuster won't be in play. It'll be a straight up down majority vote. You got 13 sitting Republican senators running for re-election in 2026. We could go through the list of those people. How many of those people want to take a vote against not just the Republican base, but also about 3/4 of the general electorate that wants to see the Epstein files released? Puts them in an incredibly difficult position. I don't think people are saying it's going to be an uphill fight in the Senate. I'm not sure that's right. You need 4 Republican senators to get this through the Senate. Are there 4 of the 13 sitting Republican senators who are up for re-election who are not going to get on the side of this issue where 75% of the American public is and where the MAGA base increasingly is also? I don't really see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the MAGA base has been there. Like, MAGA base has been pushing this for a decade. The MAGA base has been saying that the powers that be, is like the deep state, has been protecting rich, powerful men who were pedophiles and released the documents. That's all we've heard. Remember, Pam Bondi called the right-wing influencers over and gave them notebooks with very little inside of them, binders with very little inside of them. So it is a central issue for them. But you bring up a great point. We're all focused on the House because that's where I'm a member of the House. If they're conspiracy theorists, chances are good. They swirl around in the back benches of the House. But you bring up a great point. You've got senators that are going to be running, Republican senators that are going to be running. And I've seen it firsthand. The things that you think should break through to the American people don't break through. During Bill Clinton's term, there were a lot of things that I thought should break through that didn't break through. And then it was a personal situation, let's just say, that broke through. And I was thinking, wait, okay, they're going to impeach him for this, but they were okay with, like, missile cells to China that, like, everybody at the DOD said he should never do. But you never know what's going to break through. This is one of those things that break through. And so if you're a Republican senator and you're sitting fairly comfortably, maybe you think you're going to win easily, or by 3 or 4 or 5 points. You just saw what happened last week. The massive wave elections coast to coast. You saw what happened in even Bucks County, the swingiest swing county in America, practically. You'd have to be pretty stupid to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be on the side of covering up the Epstein files. I think you're right. I think as this gets through the House and goes to the Senate, there are going to be a lot of Republican senators who said no to Donald Trump on the filibuster that are probably going to say no to him on covering up the Epstein files.
So listen,
Joe, the filibuster thing was very much on my mind. You know, the Republican Senate, which has almost never bucked Trump on anything, in the wake of the election results, on the off-year election results that Tuesday, November 4th, immediately thereafter we saw, and it hasn't gotten enough attention, we saw Republican senators suddenly find their backbone on the question of the filibuster. If Republican senators told Trump to pound sand in the wake of the off-year elections on the filibuster, are they really just going to cave into Trump on an issue like this, which, as you say, is cutting through? Most Americans still don't really understand the filibuster. I'm not sure I understand the filibuster, but everybody understands this Jeffrey Epstein story. And you are going to see the survivors out in force again. They are going to be saying, are you really, Senator Susan Collins, are you really going to vote against the wishes of the Jeffrey Epstein survivors who want to see these files come out? They're going to make that case if they have any political savvy, and they have shown that they do. They're going to make that case to every swing sitting Republican senator who's in any way vulnerable. And I think it's going to be a very hard vote to resist for someone like, say, Susan Collins.
Trump's association with Epstein has been long known in public, and he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing when it comes to the late sex trafficker. But the president and his aides have been waging an intense pressure campaign that ultimately backfired here on Capitol Hill tonight, where that petition to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files now has all of the votes that it needs. The 218th vote came courtesy of the newest member of the House, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, who was sworn in today, 50 days after winning her election. Speaker Mike Johnson said tonight that that bill will get its vote here on Capitol Hill next week.
It's a totally pointless exercise. It is completely moot now. We might as well just do it. I mean, they have 218 signatures, that's fine. We'll do it.
The two members of Congress who have been leading the charge on this bill are my sources on the Hill tonight, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. And thank you both for being here, obviously on a huge day for the two of you. I'll ask you, since he's the Republican House Speaker, he's calling it totally pointless exercise and completely moot. What do you make of his comments? Do you agree with those?
Well, the White House spent a lot of effort in the midst of a shutdown to stop a totally pointless exercise that's completely mute. And by the way, I got to give credit to Lauren Boebert to walk into the White House, the center of power, the free world, really, and to sustain that and to come back out and to be solid, and also to Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was all the speculation that they might take their names off, and they never did. So it's not a hoax. It's not a moot point. It is a very serious thing. There are 1,000 victims, and there are survivors who have had a press conference with Ro Khanna and I, and that's what we're fighting for, justice for them.
Did y'all talk to them at any point during this, as the White House was making clear they were targeting these members?
I talked to them. I don't want to say which one I had this conversation with, but one of them was told, we can't let Massie have a win. How petty is that? I mean, this is more than about political wins. It's about getting transparency and justice, which, by the way, this administration promised. You have the Vice President, J.D. Vance, you have the AG, you have the FBI director. They've all done a 180 on this.
So the White House said to one of these members that they didn't want you to have a win here.
That's correct.
I mean, what does that say to you, Congressman Ro Khanna, as to the White House's motivation here? I mean, I think so many people look at this and say, why is the White House fighting this as hard as they are, and you know, taking Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room, which is incredibly unusual based on my experience covering the White House?
They've really lost their way, because it was really Donald Trump, and more than Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, who in podcast after podcast said, release the Epstein files. And I give credit, of course, to the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. They met with the survivors. It was personal. But I also give credit to Congressman Thomas Massie. I mean, he's got 3 billionaires literally pouring millions of dollars in his race against him to take him out simply because he wants these files released, which the president campaigned on. And you know what? The left and right are agreeing on one thing. It's time to get rid of the Epstein class, these rich and powerful people who rig the rules for themselves and ignore forgotten Americans.
So how many Republicans do you think are going to vote for this next week when Speaker Johnson brings it to a vote?
I think there's going to be a deluge of Republicans. The longer this goes on, the more support we gain. And I think the Speaker recognized that, and that's why after months of trying to stop us, he's decided to accelerate the vote, because he knows we're going to get votes, and that's going to carry momentum into the Senate. And that's why it's important to get a big vote in the House for Ro and I on this measure, is because that's where it goes next, is the Senate.
Yeah, so what happens here when it goes, if it passes and it does have that deluge of Republicans? I know you said today you thought 40 to 50 could potentially vote for it. Is that right?
Well, I think the Speaker's concluded if you can't stop the parade, you might as well lead it. And so now he's saying, I want to have the vote. I do think that you could get 30, 40, 50 Republicans voting for it, because what are we talking about? We're talking about rich and powerful men who abused young girls and told people in junior high to go recruit others to be raped or abused. That's what we're talking about. And we're saying that these victims want to expose the men who did this to them. Some of these men still have buildings named after them. Some of them still have scholarships named after them. Enough. And so I think when it's actually a vote on the House floor, do you want these files released? Republicans and Democrats are going to vote yes.
So what does it say if that happens and there are that many people who are in the House who vote for it and the Senate doesn't take it up?
Well, we used a discharge petition. This is a parliamentary procedure that's only available in the House. It's only been successful maybe 20 times in the history of our country. Like, we had a 4% probability, if you look at statistics, of getting this to the floor, but we succeeded. In the Senate, They don't have a discharge petition, but they do have other ways. Each senator is almost like their own rules committee over there. And by being dilatory or accelerating the process for other senators, they can cajole them into getting votes. And I think we could see a vote on this in the Senate.
Why do you think the president keeps calling it a hoax, as he did again today? And he basically said no real Republicans, no good Republicans that aren't stupid or bad would fall for this trap.
It's sad to me, because I actually didn't do this to score points against Donald Trump. I know Representative Massey didn't do it for that reason. We did it because we heard the stories of these survivors and we want justice for them. They're going to be out in front of the Capitol again on Tuesday. They were out about 2 months ago. And my guess is they're going to say the same thing. Mr. President, please meet with us. Listen to us. You can actually release these files. And I rather Donald Trump do the right thing, even if he gets a political win, than for us to go on ignoring women who've been abandoned before Trump's presidency. These women have not had justice for decades.
So you're saying it's bigger than Donald Trump?
It's much bigger than Donald Trump.
Because the White House is saying this is something Democrats didn't talk about when Joe Biden was in office, which we've asked you about before, and said that that's the whole motivating factor here. But you say that that's not the case for you either?
No, and I think Roe can go back and find examples where he talked about these files. I can go back in my social media and show you examples where I talked about these files needing to be released before President Trump was the president. And I don't think it's about Trump. I looked at
also,
those.
So did President Trump, for the record.
Yes, he did, for the record.
And J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and members of the cabinet.
I looked at those emails there, and I don't think that implicates Trump any more than he's already been implicated. And I don't think he's trying to protect himself, per se. I think he's beyond embarrassment. Look, I was in an oversight committee when we were arguing, should he have paid the prostitute he had an affair with through campaign funds, or should he have used his personal funds? He's beyond embarrassment. That's what these files could present to him. I think there are people who are criminally implicated that aren't Donald Trump, but they may be his friends, and I think that's who he's trying to protect.
So you think he's just trying to cover up for other people?
For other people, and also probably for our own intelligence agencies.
But when you read that email from the 2011 email that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to Ghislaine Maxwell, who is obviously serving her sentence right now, and he says that Trump is the dog that hasn't barked, I wonder what you read into that.
I think he's probably saying that why haven't they asked Trump anything? Why hasn't Trump spoken? But, the reason this cuts right at Trump's message is people knew he wasn't perfect when they elected him. People knew he had a lot of things in his past, but he promised, he said, look, I may not be perfect, but I'm going to take on the corrupt elite. I'm going to take on these people who just pay off politicians and have impunity and are shafting you. And now he's become part of Washington, and people are like, what happened to him? Why has he become part of the swamp that he said he would drain? And so, in my view, what would redeem him after months of dragging this out is to release the files. For the life of me, I don't understand why he just doesn't release the files, and let's have the left and the right come together to say enough with the Epstein class. They need to go.
Yeah, and
I could be wrong, but I look at that email and about dogs barking.